what is the difference between a thought and an emotion? Because what I found in my perimenopausal journey was the thoughts turned into really exaggerated emotions without all of those neurochemicals to soften it. My emotions were very heightened. So can you help us understand how a thought turns into emotion and what the difference is?
Yes, I'd like to kind of take the question and sort of field it in a different way. So, I am a neuropsychologist, which means I'm a clinical psychologist with specialized expertise in the brain. So, really, all of my work, all of my brain research has focused on emotion. So, what is emotion?
Right.
Emotion is quite literally energy.
Yeah.
I don't mean this metaphysically. I don't mean it metaphorically. I mean, the reason I can do my fMRI and EEG research is because emotions are neuroelectric zings in your brain that
Mm-hmm.
really govern all of the meaning in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is one of the biggest shifts that I want to bring to people. The meaning of your life rises on the energy of emotion. So, I want you to
Mm-hmm.
think about any single thing in your life that has meaning. Are you a good person? Were you a good parent? Are you a good leader? Do you have enough money? Do you have enough I could give you a million of these questions. It depends. How do you feel about it?
Mm. Yep.
Okay? So human meaning is constructed almost entirely in the energy of emotion.
Okay.
So we don't need to get too academic about this, but I think a phenomenal way that's really useful to think about emotion is emotion are like the Google Maps of your life.
Okay.
Okay. So we're all driving down the interstate of our lives and we get these neuroelectrical zings like, I should immediately leave this conversation. I'm
Mm.
driving down to my little Google Maps GPS is like, Julia, at the next intersection, immediately say no and hold a boundary. And what do? I behave in the exact opposite direction. Okay. So when I say that emotion is an energy, I again mean this quite neurobiologically. So what a lot of us are doing is we're getting these somatic signals, these neurophysiological signals that are intended to guide our lives in alignment with the highest truth of our energy, but then we are thinking and behaving in the exact opposite direction.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a few examples of this. I say I want to hold a boundary. So I feel like I want to hold a boundary. But then when push comes to shove, I have a thought or more importantly, I behave in a way that I disrespect my own boundary.
Right.
I have a feeling like I want to speak up. I'm really frustrated about something. I've been hurt about something. I have a feeling that I want to speak up. But what do? I keep my mouth shut.
Okay.
So in all of these moments, what's happening, and this is a really key point if we want to talk about energy and irritability and quality of life, in each of those moments, I have divided the energy of my
Mm.
emotion from the energy of my thinking and my behavior.
Mm.
Well, I
Okay.
always talk about there's an emotional physics to our life. There's an emotional math to it.
Okay.
If I continuously divide the energy of my emotion from the energy of the way that I'm thinking and behaving, the consequence is very logical. I start to feel depleted.
Mm.
I feel burnt out. I feel like nothing's working. I feel like my life is out of control.
Okay.
So the imperative to unite emotional energy with the way we're actually living in our lives is essential to feeling like we have powerful, resilient, meaningful lives.
Okay, so my neurochemical chemistry brain kicks in because I think, well, where does the emotion come from? So you're saying what I'm hearing you say is that it's energy, and so where does the energy come from? And I guess my brain goes to, like, let's use something like serotonin, for example. So if I am a 45-year-old woman and I'm losing estradiol, well, estradiol also stimulated serotonin. So now I'm losing serotonin. So I'm not feeling like as happy. There's a different emotional state there because of a neurochemical change. Would you just say that that's a different energy that I'm now feeling because my neurochemical system is different than it was in my younger years?
Well, so I think this is something that's really important to point out is that there's no, and I think this kind of blows people's mind. There's no single agreed upon definition for emotion
Wow.
among
Yeah.
scientists. Okay.
Yes.
So it's a fight, sometimes a friendly fight, sometimes a contentious fight in the field. But I call myself ruthlessly pragmatic. And so
Mhm.
I'm always thinking, where does the rubber hit the road? Like people have lives to live and they want their lives to feel good. So when
Right.
our lives don't feel good to us, we can get very abstract about it and we can do all the research. And I think this is profoundly powerful. It's why I'm a scientist. But we have to start thinking if I'm in a moment in my life and I don't feel good, what can I do to improve function? And I
Right.
think what happens a lot of times to women is for an entire lifetime, we have been denying the truth of our energy. We have been
Mm.
behaving and thinking in ways that do not align with the emotional energy. So the brain is the most extraordinary machine on the planet. Okay. It
Agreed.
is the most extraordinary technology. And it sometimes frustrates me and sometimes it kind of humors me that people pay more attention to the intelligent operation of their cell phones or now chat GPT than they pay attention to the machinery of their brain and their nervous system.
Yeah.
Okay. So the brain is very exquisite. But when it comes to pain, so all of my work is really what I call the relationship between the brain, emotional pain, and emotional power.
Okay.
I think one of the most powerful things about my work is I take emotions, which are wildly complex,
Yes.
and I clarify them in a way that's extremely empowering.
Right.
So, if when it comes to pain, the parts of the brain that mediate physical and emotional pain, there are some overlapping components,
Okay.
which tells you the body registers distress the way the body's going to register distress. So, if, for example, I go to put my hand on a hot stove and I burn my hand, I will immediately pull my hand away and I will never do that again.
Mhm.
In neuropsychology, we call that one trial learning, meaning the imprint was so strong in my nervous system that I never have to go back and touch that stove again.
Mm,
Okay.
mm. 'Kay.
What happens though in our experiences of emotional pain or emotional distress, and this is a very important point I want to make. I'm going to use the term emotional pain over and over and over in our conversation, but
Okay.
I need people to understand I'm talking about a continuum.
Okay.
Emotional pain is any emotional sensation that does not feel good to you. Irritability, frustration, inadequacy, irritation, rage, being mad, being pissed off, being lonely. The reason is I always say the brain is the most precious real estate on the planet. It's less
Mhm.
than 3 pounds. The circuits in your brain that give rise to your bad feelings are the circuits in your brain that give rise to your bad feelings, right? You understand what I'm saying? So there's not like one part of the brain that controls trauma and another part of the brain that controls when you're in
Mm,
normal rush hour.
mm.
It's just
Right.
these parts that control the stress. Okay.
Okay.
So if I get physical pain and I burn my hand on a hot stove, I'll never do that again. But when you think about your emotional pain, the ways you're irritated with the people in your life, the ways that you're frustrated, the ways that you feel like you've been neglected, every single one of them, by definition, is chronic.
Mm. Okay, like leftover from the past, like you're keep carrying it through.
Well, it just keeps happening over and over and over and over and over and over and over again.
Okay.
So if you're taking it, so say you're frustrated with your family. No one has ever come to me and been like, I've been frustrated with my family one day, one time in the year 2003.
Yeah.
It's like I'm continuously frustrated.
Yes.
Or people's relationship with social media. We're consistently triggered. So if we want an intelligent handling of emotions, regardless of where we are in terms of our human development, right? We've got to understand what's really happening with emotion. And
Okay.
for a lot of us, what's happening is we're replaying these chronic patterns of emotional pain over and over and over again. So, unlike the stove, where I touch the stove and never do it again, we're engaging in our lives emotionally in the same ways over and 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 expecting a different result.
And does that come from some initial emotion you had as a child? Like, where does that come from?
So this is a fascinating conversation. Yes, it comes from, I mean, what's really profound is, yes, it absolutely comes from childhood coding. What we're starting to learn, and some of my work has been in gene by environment interactions. We're starting to see, I'm sure people have heard of epigenetics.
Yeah.
We carry quite literally in our DNA our ancestors' pain.